I'll read this one.
Yes.
Virtually every Bible has it rendered the same way. And Thomas answered and said to him, "My Lord and my God." Yeshua, and then the next verse, Yeshua said to him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed." And then, yeah. So that's I've heard this one a bunch used on me tons of times. So this one should be fun. This one will take a little bit longer to go through.
Yeah, I think what's worth noting here. Now, again, the discrepancies between the Greek manuscripts and what we know of the Hebrew manuscripts of the Tanakh are something that really can't be compared when we're reading the English language. But for what it's worth, what we read in English, if we were to read this same phrase in the Tanakh, it's noteworthy that the only words used here would have been Adonai and Elohim, neither of which directly connote deity, which we discussed the last time around. Because Adonai or Adoni is master or Lord in the sense of like we understand in English Lord, and then Elohim also is ruler, judge, authority. It's a figure of authority. It doesn't directly connote any deistic meaning. So sure, he may very well have said that to Yeshua and as an expletive have been referring to him as his Lord and Master. And that would still translate in Adonai and Elohim. It would still work.
Even, just from an agency standpoint, we should probably get to that later on. But I've seen it argued that the idea of calling him, saying this to him, is not to call him God directly, but at the same time, a little bit, but only in the same way that Moses spoke to the burning bush, which was an angel of the Lord, and he spoke to it as though it were God in the first person, and so there's that, and John is an incredibly mystical book, right? Part of the background of the whole Gospel of John is it is not one of the synoptic Gospels at all, and it's not historical, at all. There's almost if you take the skeleton, okay, of all of the synoptic Gospels and the story of Jesus, right? Let's just take the basic outline of his life. Almost none of that skeleton is in John, right? In the synoptics, him, a lot of his teachings, a lot of the things that he does, they're almost not there. John is like the black sheep of the family. Just, it's a completely different set of record. It's not multiply attested. It's incredibly mystical. It's really late in its writing, and it doesn't even attempt to be a historical recording of Jesus' life. It seems to be more like a record of theology, a way of thinking, but written in the way that history was written pretty commonly back then. Basically, a lot of what's said in John that is attributed to as though Jesus said it himself, it's likely he didn't say those things verbatim like that, but rather from John's perspective, right. That's what he meant to say, and so he records what he got out of that. So what does that mean?
Right. And this is...
Go ahead.
Right. This is also another one of those instances where John is the only book that records this statement, as far as I'm aware.
It is, yes.
Yeah, so this is a conversation that apparently none of the other authors of the Gospels were privy to. So it is noteworthy in terms of textual criticism. This makes it stand out as something that does not fall within the boundaries of multiple attestation.
Yeah, on my show, my independent podcast, Since Studies in the New Testament. From the historian's perspective, strictly speaking, you can never say Thomas said this, because it's simply not, it doesn't meet any of the criteria that you would use as a historian to deem it as history. One, it kind of doesn't fit the context, right? Just contextually speaking, a Jew would never say to another Jew that you are God. That's just not something that would happen. So it contextually doesn't make sense. And actually, there are many Trinitarian, early Trinitarian commentators who actually make this. They have commentary on this verse, and they say explicitly, Thomas did not mean to say Jesus was God, because Thomas did not yet know of the Trinity. Like, Thomas was not aware. So this, even though many Trinitarians today use this verse as a proof text, the early Trinitarian commentators were very specific. No, Thomas was not a Trinitarian yet. This revelation was not yet given to him. This was, an expletive or some other explanation. So I just think it's, but yeah, just strictly as a historian, you can't say he said this. The criteria of dissimilarity. Does it fit? Does it sound like a Christian wrote it? It absolutely does. And so it doesn't fit dissimilarity. And then multiple attestation. Does anyone else attest that he said this? No. So you have those top three criteria. It doesn't meet a single one of them. In fact, the I am statement, same thing. It doesn't meet a single one of the three criterion for historical relevance. So a lot of historians, when it comes to talking about the historical Jesus, completely leave out the book of John. I mean, can you blame them? It was written like 90 years after his life. It's the latest gospel. So naturally, every historian, especially secular historians, are going to look at it and go, so that's barely credible at best. So, they just kind of ignore it. But